What is the meaning of life? Today, men have lost touch with their primal instincts and their traditional rituals. There is a void of meaning in the lives of many young men who instead fill that void with video games, pornography, and weed. First published in 1946, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is more important now than ever. And in today's video, I will share with you 6 important lessons that I've learned from reading it and how you can create actionable improvements in your life using the wisdom from this book. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychologist living in Vienna when the Nazis took over. In 1942, he was sent to a concentration camp, and he was sent around various concentration camps for the next few years until he was finally liberated in 1945. Man's Search for Meaning is divided into 2 parts. The first part provides an account of the horrors that the author suffered in various concentration camps, including Auschwitz. He discusses the experience of first arriving at the camp and being separated from his wife, being put to work as a slave laborer, and then becoming the doctor in the camp when there was an outbreak of typhus. Man's Search for Meaning is not written as a statistical, historical account, but rather a personal recollection of the author's experiences. It provides a microscopic insight of how the trauma of camp life can affect the mind of an individual. At the same time, Frankl did not write a personal sob story nor a soap opera. Many personal details, such as the fact that his wife died of typhus, are left out. Now, in the second part of the book, the author makes the case for logotherapy, which is a psychotherapeutic approach that helps the patient discover meaning in their life. He outlines the problems that people face when trying to find meaning in their lives, and these are many of the same problems that people still face today. He then relates his experiences in the camps with his philosophy on the meaning of life and how to find it. The first lesson that we learn from this book is one of the first lessons that the author experienced during his early days in the camp. And that lesson is that you can endure much more than you know. So Frankl was a doctor before he was taken prisoner, and in the camp, he found that there were some other doctors who were also prisoners. They were all shocked to find out that ideas they previously held as facts about the human physiology were simply not true. For example, a man can go without sleep for much longer than they previously thought. The prisoners had healthier gums than before, despite not brushing their teeth and being very deficient in vitamins. And the sores and abrasions on their hands did not get infected, despite the horrendous lack of sanitation. Frankl arrived at the same conclusion previously hypothesized by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is man is a creature that can get accustomed to anything. Now bear this in mind next time you have to overcome a challenge. If you did not sleep well the night before, ignore this setback and power through your workout as normal. If conditions in your home are not optimum for work and studying, use this to challenge your mental fortitude and improve your powers of concentration and focus. And maintain the attitude that whatever happens in your environment, your output will not be compromised. So Frankl makes the case that man can endure more than he knows, but through what means? To have this will for survival and the power to endure suffering, man must have a reason to exist. In Nietzsche's words, he who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how. This reason for living comes from an understanding that life still expects something from you, and specifically you. This expectation might be to love and care for somebody, like a wife, child, or friend, or it may be to complete a task that only you can fulfill. In the camp, Frankl had 2 primary whys to keep living. One was to see his wife again, because he had no knowledge that she had died until he was liberated from the camp. And the other was to complete a manuscript on logotherapy, which he had begun but was confiscated when he arrived at the camp. As the book goes on, Frankl makes the case that there should always be a gap between who you are now and who you will become. And closing this gap is part of your reason to live. Experiencing this gap and feeling that tension is crucial to our mental health. Frankl writes, "What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task." And I think this is one of the most actionable pieces of advice in the book. You must have a higher ideal of yourself that you aspire to in various domains. And one of the most obvious ones would be fitness. Right now, I see a very clear gap between the physique I have and the one I want to have. In my work, I see a gap between the reach and influence I have now and the reach and influence I want to have in the future. And even on a more personal, introspective level, there are skills and characteristics that I must develop to become the man I want to be. As an actionable step, I would love it if you could pause this video right now and go to the comments. Write down one gap between who you are now and who you want to become. In Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl identifies what he calls the existential vacuum. It appears that the same malaise and apathy that affects young men today also affected people decades ago. Frankl proposes that humans have lost touch with both their primal instincts and their traditional rituals. We do not have the same daily brushes with death and raw primal expression of our caveman instincts like our ancestors did. Meanwhile, most people have no religious doctrine to follow and no wars to fight. This results in a void of existence and meaning for many people, and some people fill that with the desire to be like others, which results in conformism, and some fill that void with the desire to do what others tell them to do, which results in totalitarianism. And the existential vacuum is often most pronounced among the unemployed. But studies have found that people who are unemployed yet they dedicate their time to volunteer without payment, volunteer to a worthy cause, experience a huge uplift in meaning and fulfillment in their lives. Frankl argues that meaning can even be found through suffering. The suffering that the author of this book experienced during the camps gave him the perspective, the experience, and the insight that he needed to write this book, which has had a life-changing impact on millions of readers around the world. So, what is the meaning of life? Well, Frankl argues that to ask this question is like asking what's the greatest movie of all time. There is no objective, definitive answer. Instead, he writes, everyone has his own specific vocation or assignment which demands fulfillment. So the meaning of life is to fulfill that task that only you can fulfill. What unique combination of experiences, skills, and motivations do you possess that you can utilize for a specific purpose? For me, I had the experience and skills of being a journalist. I had a love for men's style and tradition, and I had the desire to create a generation of gentlemen. My unique combination of attributes led me to create this channel, and the work I produce here and the community that we have gives tremendous meaning to my life. Logotherapy, which Frankl pioneered, makes the patient aware of his own responsibleness and his unique source of meaning. Frankl writes, "Live as if you were living already for the second time, and as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now." The final lesson to take away from Man's Search for Meaning is that you choose how to exist. According to Frankl, the concentration camps brought out the extremes in every man's character, either in a positive or a negative way. Frankl's experience of the concentration camp was not a simple story of evil Nazis and benevolent prisoners. He talks a lot about the capos, Jewish prisoners who were used as guards, who could be mercilessly cruel in their positions of power. On the other hand, he found some of the SS men to be surprisingly kind. From this, he concluded that we have agency over how we choose to act and treat our fellow man. It is not decided by societal roles, even if we wear a uniform. And we see this in modern life too. For example, some police officers are bad, and some of them are the best people around. To label all people of any profession, race, or circumstance as all the same would be incredibly short-sighted and reductive. And finally, in a situation where all other freedoms have been taken away, Frankl discovered that the only freedom that cannot be taken from you is the freedom to choose how you respond to any circumstance or situation. Gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed the lessons I have gathered from this fantastic book. I encourage you now to read it and study it yourself to discover its teachings and find your own interpretation. I'll put the link to this one in the description. If you enjoy discussing books and learning through reading, I encourage you to join the Gent Z community, where you can participate in our monthly book club. I'll put the link to that in the description also. And let me know in the comments if you would enjoy seeing more book videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching.